Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we're diving straight into a really fascinating biological detective story. It's one of those situations that proves things in the natural world aren't always what they seem. So our journey starts with something super ordinary, a trip to a local aquarium store by a dedicated fish keeper named Aang. He actually documents all his experiences in a series called Notes on Fishkeeping. And what started as just a totally routine observation turned into this incredible lesson in biology, species identification, and honestly, the hidden life cycles of the animals we keep in our living rooms. We're going to follow Aang's investigation to uncover the true identity of a very mysterious fish. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever looked at a label, at a pet store, maybe a botanical garden or a museum, and just assumed, yep, that's completely accurate? Well, that's exactly the inciting incident for us today. During an aquarium store field trip, our fish keeper Aang, who, by the way, had actually discovered a silver scat, or a scatophagus multifasciata, on a previous trip, well, he stumbled upon another tank that caught his eye. The label proudly and definitively claimed the fish inside was a red scat. I mean, to the untrained eye, that label is the ultimate authority, right? You read it, you believe it, you buy the fish, and you take it home. But Aang, drawing on his own experience, noticed something was kinda off with the specimen swimming right in front of him. And that brings us to this brilliant clash of information. We've got our first suspect, the store label. It confidently declares the fish is a red scat, scientifically known as scatophagus-rubrifrons. But Aang, being the meticulous guy he is, decided to actually run an AI analysis on a photo of the fish while he was drafting his notes. And boom, we have our second suspect, the AI analysis results. The AI identified the fish not as a red scat, but as a spotted scat, or scatophagus-argus. So we have a direct contradiction. Literally one single fish, but two completely different scientific identities battling for the truth. In the fish-keeping hobby, where very specific care requirements dictate whether an animal thrives or, doesn't make it, getting this right is absolutely crucial. So how do we solve this? Well, we have to look past the printed text and examine the actual physical evidence. Now, what's really interesting about this is that Aang didn't just blindly take the AI's word for it either. He looked incredibly closely at the physical traits of the fish in his photo. First up, the red coloration. I mean, if a fish is called a red scat, you'd logically expect a bold, bright red fish, right? But Aang noticed that the red coloration was actually limited to a really small portion of the fish's body, mostly just isolated up on the dorsal fins. Second, and honestly way more importantly, he observed these distinct spots clearly visible across the entire body. It created this striking pattern that completely contradicted the whole red moniker. So, based on those two massive visual clues, the limited red but the dominant spots, Aang deduced that it is highly likely this fish is actually a spotted scat. The physical traits were heavily favoring the AI over that overly confident store label. Which brings us to a super relatable, kind of funny observation from Aang himself. He points out that in his experience, most fish stores have the tendency of mislabeling the fish species. And you know what? That sentiment totally validates his entire investigation. It is such a great reminder for any hobbyist out there. The paperwork isn't always the ground truth. I mean, human error, crazy supply chain mix-ups, or honestly just a lack of highly specialized taxonomic knowledge at the retail level, all of that can easily lead to these exact types of mix-ups. Aang's skepticism? Completely warranted from the get-go. But here's where our little detective story hits a rather frustrating biological wall. So we have strong visual evidence, we have AI corroboration, we have a known track record of store mislabeling. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. We're facing what we're going to call the 100% confirmation problem. Aang points out that the absolutely only way to be 100% certain of this fish's identity is to wait until it reaches full maturity. You see, a lot of animal species, and especially fish, have these juvenile colorings and patterns that can subtly or even dramatically change as they grow up. So until the fish is fully grown, there's always going to be this tiny little margin of doubt. But waiting for this specific fish to mature introduces a massive roadblock in our investigation, and it's all because of some incredibly fascinating biological traits. Let's move along and see how this builds, because to understand why waiting for this fish to grow up is such a problem for an aquarium hobbyist, we need to look at a couple of specific scientific terms. The first one is euryhaline. Euryhaline refers to an organism that can tolerate a huge range of salinity, literally all the way from totally fresh water to entirely saltwater. Just think about how incredible that adaptability is for a second. Most aquatic life is strictly locked into one or the other, like a freshwater fish placed in the ocean simply won't survive, and vice versa. But the scatfish, it essentially has this biological superpower to handle both extremes, letting it navigate vastly different environments. It is a remarkable evolutionary trick, and it completely changes how we have to look at their long-term care. So, the crucial point is, how does the fish actually use that superpower in the wild? That brings us to our second term, amphidromus. While euryhaline tells us what the fish can tolerate, amphidromus tells us what the fish actually does. An amphidromus fish actively migrates between freshwater and the sea. But here is the critical distinction. They do this for essential life cycle purposes, not just for breeding. Okay, this isn't some quick weekend swim down the river to spawn. This is a fundamental, totally required habitat shift as the fish ages. And this biological imperative, it reveals the massive missing puzzle piece as to why mature scats are basically ghosts in the standard aquarium trade. And this brilliantly illustrates the timeline. Phase 1, the juvenile years. Scatfish actually spend this early part of their lives entirely in freshwater, which perfectly explains why Aang is seeing this small, juvenile fish sitting in a standard freshwater tank at the local pet store. But Phase 2, adulthood? That changes everything. As they mature, their biology literally dictates that they must migrate out to the saltwater ocean to live out the rest of their adult lives. Aang actually notes that to this day, he still hasn't ever seen a large mature adult scatfish in a store, because by the time they reach that 100% identifiable maturity, their biological needs have completely shifted from a basic freshwater setup to a full-blown marine environment. Basically, the fish outgrows the typical freshwater hobbyist's tank, so they just vanish from that retail space entirely. So what does this all mean? What's our big takeaway from Aang's field trip? Well, understanding these complex biological life cycles is absolutely crucial. This isn't just about winning some taxonomy trivia contest or, dunking on a pit store's mistake. It's about recognizing the true nature of the living creatures we bring into our homes. Think about it. If someone bought that red scat, just completely trusting the label, but didn't know anything about its euryhaline and amphidromus nature, they would be wildly unprepared when it eventually needed a saltwater environment. True understanding requires us to look way past the surface, past that simple little price tag, and really investigate the wild natural life cycle of the animal. We've cracked the case of the imposter fish. We deduced it was highly likely a spotted scat, and in the process, we uncovered this incredible, hidden journey from freshwater rivers out into the vast saltwater ocean. Aang really said it best. It's always great to learn something new during these trips. So I want to leave you with this thought. The next time you're walking past an unassuming glass tank, take a closer look. What other incredible, wild journeys, profound biological adaptations, and secret identities are swimming right there in front of you? Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and keep exploring the amazing world around you. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.